Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel for another special Sunday afternoon event. I'm really excited here to shortly introduce our special guest, who, of course, you're here to see and hear from and hopefully talk to. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you know about the two events that are coming up here on Tuesday and Wednesday. You might have noticed if you follow us on Twitter that I just sent out a tweet saying that we're going to be doing a little live on the road show of the Dusty Wheel. It's actually going to be outside of the Wheel of Time universe, but tangentially connected because it's for Brandon Sanderson's Starsight book release event. We're going to be there and showing his presentation live, but before that, we'll actually try to get out there amongst the fans that are waiting in line, kind of show that event, do some live things there. It's going to be our first time doing that, so expect there to be some technical difficulties, which is likely, but it's going to be a lot of fun if you are into Brandon Sanderson's books to come watch us live on Tuesday evening. That'll be at 6 p.m. Mountain, or I guess it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern time. Also, Wednesday, we're going to have our first in-studio interviews. That's going to be with the Legendarium podcast and Inking Out Loud. We're going to have Craig and Drew here in the studio with me live. We're just going to have fun chatting about the Wheel of Time, do some fun little games. It'll be kind of a more variety show interview than we've done before. So show up on Wednesday. That's our normal slot, our 9 p.m. Eastern time slot there. You'll see advertisements for that across social media. But, okay, that being said, and hopefully we'll see you then, now I want to introduce our special guest here, Daniel Greene. He's you all know him, right? He's mega fan, and I want to say he's definitely YouTube famous at this point. So let's welcome him onto the show. Hey, Daniel, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Oh man, I ever since I had heard your name at JordanCon, and then kind of watched some of your stuff, I was like, people are on YouTube talking about the Wheel of Time. This is awesome. I hadn't actually known that until that moment. I don't know if I'm just a dinosaur or whatever it is, but I hadn't gone looking, probably because I was stuck on some forums, theorizing about the books or something. I don't know. But I appreciate you jumping on. You've done so much content, fantasy news and everything. So I just want to dive into this, considering we both love the Wheel of Time. And we know there are no beginnings nor endings, but in this case, there is an beginning or a beginning. So when did you first recognize that you were a huge, book geek, that reading was a passion?
So that's an interesting question and a good way to phrase it, because a lot of people ask me, like, what was your first fantasy book? And I have a hard time even remembering that. But when did I realize that I'm a huge book nerd? Surprisingly late.
Really?
Yeah, I talked books a lot, and I just hung out with a bunch of other book nerds, and it never really occurred to me that it wasn't normal to talk books a lot.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Then I moved high schools, and making new friends was just talking about, like, fantasy and all this stuff, and then got a lot of blank stares. It was just kind of like, oh, got it. All right, I'm a book nerd. Okay, I can work with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, and some people on YouTube want you to turn that volume up. Sorry, probably they're giving us some immediate feedback here. No, that's amazing about that your experience, because it's so disconnected from my own. I played sports, and I don't know if I hid being a book geek. I read books outside of the normal times. Like, it was like late at night. I think that's why I'm still like a night owl. Like, I read books from like 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning, and no one knew that I was like hanging out at the library. I didn't have a group of book geek friends until much later, and now I do. Was it? But I know you don't remember necessarily the book series that got you into it. Were you just always interested in books since you were, whatever, 8, 9 years old?
I will largely attribute it to my dad, all the way from when I'm in the cradle reading me books to, okay, we're going to read you these, and now you go read this. I mean, I don't remember not reading. Like, since I've been around, there has been either stories told to me or I've been reading actively. And then there's also, on top of that, I'm severely dyslexic, and a part of my, like, overcompensating, I basically am hyper competitive with myself. So now I like had to prove, no, I don't care that I'm dyslexic. I can do this. So the bigger the fantasy book, the more I wanted to read it. And it kind of just grew from there. I was like, I have to beat everyone who's like, no, you're dyslexic, you're gonna have to, do all these things. Well, I started reading these textbook size fantasy novels just as like an exercise, and then add in the top of that, there's fantasy words in there. There's
Right.
Nynaeve Almira, and I had, as a dyslexic kid, figure out, all right, how am I going to do this?
Oh man.
So it was just good practice, and it was kind of just a part of growing up for me. Was one of the largest factors for me growing up was compensating my dyslexia. That's why I was homeschooled for a small stretch of time. And I had to fight to get an IEP growing up, which is basically saying the school acknowledging the fact that I had the problem. And tied into all of that was kind of me on this rebellious side of things going, no, I don't need your help because I can do this. Granted, I really did need the help. I really did. Yeah.
So is that why, maybe that turns me to this question of why fantasy fiction? Is it because it was so epic? It was so huge? I mean, what was that made you pick that genre over something else?
Well, it's not always been fantasy, to be honest. I'm also a big history nerd. I mean, I have my fantasy shelf is here, but I have history books. I have all kinds of stuff. And sci-fi is also equally as large, I'd say, in my life as fantasy. So it's kind of been a mix of genres, but I found fantasy to be the one that's the most fun to talk about. It's the one that people have the most hot takes on. Classic sci-fi in general, there's such a I love it. I think it's one of the most brilliant genres ever, but it's also very dry in a lot of ways of there's not a whole lot of ways to interpret iRobot. You know what I mean? It's iRobot.
Right.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, you can extrapolate so many levels, so many themes. Everyone walks away feeling differently. So it's just a more, interesting way and more interesting genre to bring to the forefront, in my opinion. But there is an alternate reality out there, I promise. Another one of the flickers where my channel is actually just sci-fi. That is totally out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, it was kind of more of a toss of the coin. I'm very happy I ended up where I did, to be honest. And mainly because I think the fantasy genre right now is so exciting in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't read a ton of sci-fi, but I remember hitting the Foundation series with Asimov and being like, this is amazing. And it was never one of those where it didn't take over my love for fantasy, but it's definitely part of it, I think. I haven't really gone about. Is there a favorite kind of on the sci-fi side of things? Is there a favorite author?
Asimov and Heinlein, but Asimov. For me, Asimov is spooky in how well he predicted so many things and how many of his ideas influenced just across the board how technology has progressed. Either he predicted it or he caused it to happen because he wrote it. Right. And so many people have just gone on from there. And I enjoy that. I think that is true brilliance. There's some level of brilliance to that that I think is underappreciated. And, Asimov also wrote outside of all the genre. He wrote so many different genres, so many different things. I mean, he has one of the highest body counts in terms of published books out there. I mean, he just cranked out. People think Stephen King's prolific. He's got nothing on Asimov in terms of publication.
Well, is Sanderson on his way to take him over, or are they? Does he still have a ways to go?
I don't know how to say this in a YouTube friendly way. Stephen King is artificially enhanced in the 70s and 80s or 80s and 90s. Brandon's not. So I don't think he'll be able to match him, and I don't know a better way to put that. But yeah, Stephen King was artificially enhanced, and it's a little hard to beat Stephen King at his peak. And I think Asimov was just nerdy at a level where he had to write as much as he did. He's one of these guys who's just I have so many ideas, all I'm gonna do is write them.
Right. I wish I was there. In my head, I think I'm that, but I'm not. It's like I have so many ideas and I just want to go talk about them. When I start writing them down, it's fun, but it's not as compelling, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm just built to be a really geeky kid that wants to talk about theories, I guess, because I just want to get it out and chat with people,
Now, I want to come in with a hot take here. People can clip this. I will say, though, while Brandon might not have the output as an Asimov, he might not have the output of a King necessarily for as long. He does now, but maybe we don't know in 10 years. He's more high consistent quality because Asimov, we've had the passage of time, so the gold stuff's risen and some of the mass stuff's kind of fallen away. He wrote a book that's like the dirty old book for men or something like that. People don't talk about that one. And King had some duds. I don't think there have been bad Brandon duds yet. I mean, it's amazing to see the guy who had this leap in his career from Wheel of Time, who just puts out what seems like home run to home run to home run to home run in terms of his fan reception. I mean, I can't think of another author who's done that.
Well, I think a lot of that is, this one thing always strikes people when they meet Brandon is how much he engages with fans. And I think maybe it's part of that is, there's a maybe every one of his books isn't the your favorite, but there's just something about him, at least for me, when I've talked to Brandon, that he just engages so much that it's less about like I hate something he's written and I just have my favorites, you know what I mean? So it's less that there's less the things that like fail for me for him, and I wonder if it's because of that. Do you get that sense? I mean, I know you recently had an interview with him. What do you think it is about that makes that where he just doesn't have, he's following hit after hit? Is it because he's a great writer, or what's in your mind as far as the answer to that question?
Well, before the interview, I thought, well, maybe he's just the Mormon religion's right and he's found the answer. I don't know. But after the interview, there was he said, like, I have this extensive beta read process where he's giving it to person after person after person after person. And he said confidently, I know a book's reception before it's released. And I never thought that could be done, but wow. If he has the system in place where he can get, well, here's the problem. Once you've reached a level of success, you're going to be surrounded by yes men. And it seems like he's done a really good job of not having that. If he's able to have people give him such honest, critical feedback. And I would say that to anyone who really puts themselves in that position, it's so crucial to make sure you aren't just surrounded by people who are going to go, yeah, this is great. It's wonderful. It's coming from you. And instead say, no, this is bad. Work on this. And they risk kind of angering you or getting on your bad side because they know, there's no, they want to help you improve. They don't care about making you happy. They care about making you better.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like that explanation. Well, let's jump into, so you have this love of epic fantasy and reading in general, this experience. So walk me through the move. How did you move from this, talking with your fans, into all of a sudden you're on YouTube? What was that jump like?
So why did I start on YouTube is the question?
Yeah. How did you get to YouTube just and start talking about fantasy news and such?
Well, the fantasy news is an interesting story itself, but for me, I really wish it was like I was super driven to start on YouTube, but I had a college assignment that was trying to make a video go viral, and I was like, I got this, I'll do that. And so I did a video that did pretty well, and then a bunch of people were asking me to do a follow-up for this and that, and I was like, all right, and I just kind of rolled from there, and now I have a career. If I hadn't have gotten that college assignment, I would still be a software engineer and completely just, I'm happy being a software engineer, no problem.
Sure. But that's crazy. That's crazy that it came from that assignment. I've had experiences like that where, I got my first tech job and I started talking with, someone that I was working with about the Wheel of Time. And it was because of that relationship. There were other things about the relationship, but very much because I was a fan that he made sure and kind of like kept me there, where there's layoffs, but I stayed there. And I always attribute my fandom to the Wheel of Time to how that career developed. So it's weird that you have this like high school assignment and all of a sudden you're doing YouTube full time. That's nuts.
Well, it was a college assignment, and the college professor
college.
Still, no, it's fine. And the college professor is the best professor I ever had. He was a communications professor. I don't want to say his name. I don't want to dox him because you can look people up in 3 seconds online. But he was one of the most driven and passionate about communications people I'd ever met. And he really inspired me to develop my own communication skills, which, let's be honest, I'm not the biggest Wheel of Time nerd. There's people who know more than me. Absolutely. There's people who are 10 times, more deep into the series in terms of their rereads, in terms of how they've analyzed things.
Yeah.
What I think is important is you need to balance that out with, communication skills, presenting yourself. That's huge. I've never claimed to be the most knowledgeable person on the Wheel of Time, and I'm not. What I am is a big fan who likes making these video essays where I get to practice and flex the things I also learned getting my communications degree. Reading the Phaedrus about, can I do an entire video without taking notes or looking at notes? I love little challenges for me like that no one sees on the other side. But Socrates had this idea where anyone who looks at notes is an idiot. Well, let's see if I can do that. No, I can't is the answer, and I need
that's what's interesting about that concept is I've never I don't know. Sometimes I think I know a lot about very narrow things about the Wheel of Time. Right? I've been talking about it for so long, but as soon as you put me in some type of trivia challenge, it sounds like I've never read the books. You know what I mean? Like they'll ask me like something, and I'll be like, I don't know the answer to that. But can we talk about metaphysics? Let's talk about metaphysics. I know lots there, but yeah, I'm the same way. But mostly because I guess maybe I just specialize with my interest, right? And it's so narrow that I love the Wheel of Time books, but I can't say I know barely anything about them other than the things I care about most.
Well, a really important response to that is I don't think the reciting of rote facts about the Wheel of Time demonstrates knowledge and understanding.
Sure.
That's just memorization. And I'm a huge advocate for memorization is not like an intelligent conversation.
Hold on. I need to make a sign and take it to JordanCon. And I'm just gonna wear it around my thing. It's like memorization is not. Yeah, exactly. That's a key. That's important for me to. By the way, it's like that's true. I have to keep on telling myself like that's correct.
Yeah. I would 1,000 times rather sit down and have a conversation about us speculating about Moraine's character than who can name more of the kingdoms or more of the countries? Right. Because one demonstrates knowledge, while the other demonstrates an understanding, which I think are two separate things. Granted, both are fun. I also loved being on Nablus' Jeopardy and getting smoked. That was a lot of fun. Because there's by the way, shout out to Nablus, wonderful content creator here, because there's definite fun to be had with both. But I also would love to bring someone like you or Nablus on my channel and debate things we disagree about the series.
Oh man,
which shout out to that Jeopardy video. Saying tobacco is the same as saying tobacco, and I should have gotten that point.
By the way, Nablus, if you're out there, we need to do the three of us on Daniel's channel, and we need to be breaking down some speculation for sure. Oh man, that'd be awesome. Make that happen, both of you. So how have your friends and parents and significant others, whatever it is, how's everyone around you that's closest to you kind of reacted to what I think is rightfully named fame at this point?
I very much so hesitate to call it that. I think I am somewhat infamous to a small corner of the internet. But for me, I was incredibly embarrassed getting started. I honestly I love doing this, but I didn't want to tell anyone. I think a couple of my really close friends knew, and that's pretty much it. I didn't tell my parents until I think I had 20,000 subscribers, and I started getting money from it, because then I was like, I need help with my taxes, Dad. What I mean? It's like one of those situations.
20,000 subscribers. They didn't know until you had 20,000 subscribers.
I think it was about there. And then I had a girlfriend throughout all of college, and I don't think I told her once, because it was just nope. I'm keeping this under wraps. And then I didn't kind of make it fully well known in public until one day someone started asking to interview me, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a big enough part of my life now where I should at least put out hey, I'm doing this. Someone likes me.
20,000 people. No, and it's growing. No, I mean, I know you're you're a great guy, and but to me, you're 83, almost 100,000. 5 years from now, we'll have you back on, and I'll be like, now it's fame, right? Now we can agree.
It will be fame when I'm no longer so nervous I'm having stomach issues the day before I interview Brandon Sanderson. That's fame. Once I'm confident enough that before I interview, I'm not going existential dread. What if he hates me? That's okay.
Let me know. Let me know when you get there. I'm still trying to figure that out in life, in general. So yeah, that's no. I feel that way. I think that's almost probably worse. Once you become, not to be negative about that, but I feel like it's just going to get, the more people know, for me at least, the more people know, I feel like I have more butterflies and more anxiety around oh crap, I have to, perform, deliver, whatever, give them a good show, if you will.
And there's another whole level to it where I often like to say YouTubers, are people who basically are famous in the new wave. There's a new wave of fame happening in the world where you're so connected to everyone. People can message you, tweet at you. We are touchable in every sense of the word the second you have any kind of internet presence at all. I mean, even before then, I could reach out to anybody here, tweet at them, and we have a connection right there.
Yeah. And
for me, that's fascinating and scary. And at the same time, I'm really curious if like the psychological effects it'll have also down the road, you know, because like I'm sure the people who are real famous, like Kanye West is not running his Twitter. He sends a tweet to a guy who
Right.
then publishes it, and he doesn't care. At least I don't know. But there's a whole other aspect to this that I feel like I'm right at the level now where I'm getting messages every day, emails every day,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to get better at, okay, what do I just filter as I don't have the time to respond to this. What do I filter as don't take that personally? This person has a personal grudge against you. There's so many layers and angles. And at the same time, really what I'm a person trying to do is just talk about books and be nerdy and trick people into reading the Wheel of Time, which I'm very good at doing.
Tricking people into reading the most time. I think that's a good hashtag. Have you been tricked? So
I have made a lot of Wheel of Time sales. I want to put that out there through my Amazon affiliate links. So many people have bought the Eye of the World. I am proud of that fact.
Yeah, isn't that weird? You start creating a community, and all of a sudden you get to know them. It's one of the funny things where I have individuals that were part of, part of Theorylanders, and who ended up getting married and having children, and I've met those children, and it's just like it's a strange feeling of like, cool, that's awesome that through this venue you were able to meet somebody and have kind of this real world moment, or moments, lifetimes or whatever, all because of this fandom. So yeah, it's like, just stuff that like that you're like you're saying, tricking people in the Wheel of Time. You're taking your fandom and you're affecting people across the world, which I think is and for good, right? You're not out there. I don't know. It just seems like a waste of time to just go bash something just for the hell of it, But you're out there kind of telling people what you like about these things, and not that you're avoiding what you don't like, but the fact that there are people across the world that will say Daniel Greene's why I'm reading the Wheel of Time, which I think is really cool.
I get so many messages from people in Brazil. I need to go to Brazil apparently. And that's amazing to me. Brazil has a love for me. I got love for Brazil now. So that, yeah, it's really strange every time I get a message. It's like, hello from Stockholm, Sweden. I love you here. And I'm like, hey, can I be your roommate? Because I really want to go there.
That's hilarious. To Brandon Sanderson's interview, this is huge, right? I watched it. Like, what was that like for you? Because I know you're a huge fan of his. Like, how did you feel in that moment when you're interviewing him?
So here's the thing. Like, I always just try to remember, like, I'm a person, he's a person.
Yeah.
He's just a very, very, very successful person. And, what I have to say has equal weight and value as him, and same him to me, same with everyone I'm going to talk to ever. So the key thing to remember in any interview, and this is something talking back to my communications degree that we learned there, is the thing so many people forget to do once you're talking to someone you respect or you admire is to just listen. And so that was kind of my approach going in, is just tell myself, listen to what he has to say and respond. Don't just recite a list of questions, listen, respond. And then luckily, he spoke so informed and covered everything he responded to so thoroughly that I didn't have to think of like deep responses because he just covered it. And I was like, cool, let's ask a related question.
Right.
So that was kind of an advantage where he was so knowledgeable. I was just kind of like, let him take the wheel. Here are my questions. Go. But yeah, it was just, remember he's a person. He has a very deep knowledge into what we're talking about. But that's kind of the approach to the interview, is figure out what the person wants to say and listen, respond. I think a better example of that whole back and forth would be Brent Weeks. Such a charismatic, fun guy to talk to. But if you look at a bad interview, what I would have done is just listen to what I had to say and then move to the next question. Yeah. The trick is to find a related question or just go off book and say, that was interesting what you said. Now I'm curious about this.
Yeah.
Because that makes it a natural conversation. We're getting off into like my background education. Sorry.
No. By the way, you left Brandon take the wheel hanging out there in your last comment, which had so many double and triple meanings there. It's like yeah. I think it's totally good for you to throw a question out, especially to somebody so knowledgeable and experienced, right? Mm-hmm. There's part of that you're bringing that information to your audience, but there is this fan side of you, right? And so you're listening to this, but that had to. I'm sure you're trying to take in all the things that he's saying, but what is it for you about Brandon? Like, what is it about his books that resonates in your life, regardless of the fact that he's an expert and he has great things to say? What does it mean to you?
Well, go to look at what he had to say about mental health representation, how he writes, and the amount of tact and care taken into that one subject, I feel largely reflects almost every aspect of his writing, from world building to characterization to how he handles mental health. He just takes so much time, effort, and energy to round everything out. I just find everything he writes to be so rich and deep in terms of what you can just find in there, that it resonates with me so strong. He's the kind of person where he doesn't just have a story to tell, so he tells it, and that's great. There's been amazing works that are like that. Brandon, to me at least, is the kind of author where he has a story to tell, so then he builds a world within the story that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's two different approaches, and I feel like you can very much, neither one's wrong. I mean, there's a large percentage of readers out there who don't want a Stormlight like book. They will not read it. They much prefer a quick, straightforward, why am I spending 3 pages learning about a history? I don't care. Get me through the story. This is what I care about.
Yeah.
But for me, I am so biased towards that form of writing because Robert Jordan shaped my taste in fantasy largely. That he is just the natural progression where if you're a Jordan fan, I don't see you cannot be a Brandon fan.
Yeah, he when I was watching an interview with him, he talked about how that process was, even when he does his homework, if you will, and he writes something, he's very interactive with fans. He wants to hear back from them. What are some things he might have gotten, maybe not done well enough, and he can, do his best to, as it evolves and as the series evolves, he's willing to change his process or modify it in a way that he feels comfortable once he kind of takes additional inputs. And that's what I've always noticed about Brandon. He's constantly trying to learn and better his craft, and I think that, but not for the sake of the craft, right? He wants this genuine world. He, like you talked about the mental illness or mental health side of things. He wants them to reflect reality. I think to touch the reader more than just, I don't know. It's not the commercialization side to me that I don't see in his writing.
Yeah, and there's anyone who needs to improve an artist, you need to have a very this is kind of my critic side coming out. You need to have a very honest ability, a very real and honest ability to look back at your past work and see what was wrong. Because no matter what you wrote, something's wrong. And that's partially just due to, as time moves on, it will age, and some things won't age well. What might have been perfect then doesn't age well now and will be received worse now.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to go, okay, what just objectively didn't work? What doesn't work now? What is going to last eons? I mean, I think there's very few books that have aged perfectly. I mean, it might be blasphemous to say, but no, there are things in Lord of the Rings that modern audiences don't like. I've maybe met 3 or 4 people who don't skip the poems in Lord of the Rings now, which is a shame in some ways, but it also just isn't wrong. It's just a modern taste.
Yeah.
And I think, being what he said about Elantris and his representation of someone with autism, what he said about having these beta readers that give him feedback, I think, like every great artist, every great creator, he's willing to take that kind of feedback and learn and grow. And so Stormlight 3 was amazing, but I just have a consistent expectation. Now Stormlight 4 is going to put it to shame. Stormlight 5 will put 4 to shame. Stormlight 6 will put 5 to shame. Because if you're that good at taking feedback, you're just going to continue growing. And there's nowhere else to go but up, which you and I are in a different situation where we have to take feedback to videos, which is different, but it is also true. I mean, I'm constantly looking back to older videos that weren't well received, and going, okay, what was bad? What can I improve? I mean, I hate pretty much every video I've made that's older than 3 months because I see so many things I could have improved, from sound quality to lighting to everything. I mean, it's a constant growth. And I think that's something that not just in artistic settings, but that's something you should apply everywhere. Maybe that's just the workaholic perfectionist side of me, but I'm always trying to do things better. From cooking a meal to how I argue with someone to how I make a video, reflection is just a huge part of, I think, of growth. I'm getting off on a weird tangent here.
No. That's one of those, I think I'm there with you. In narrow ways, there are certainly things where I think to myself, I probably could get better at this, but I'm not going to pay much attention to it. But there are definitely places in my life where I'm like, yes, I want this to be better. I know this can be better. If you go back to, we've only been around for a couple months, but if you go back to our first video, it's still hard to leave it up there and let people watch it because we had some major audio issue. And I don't go back and watch it because I'm like, no, that bothers me so much that it's there and it happened. But we, it's that whole constant drum to kind of improve upon these things. But you brought something up in Brandon, in the interview with him, that you said But there are people out there, in some cases, you think you need to perfect something or change it, but there are some things that people just like about the way you do it. It's whether or not it's a voice or it's a, some kind of, gimmick is the wrong word, but just kind of segment that you do to the show, or the way you approach the work, that you often feel like sometimes you have to genericize something instead of just sticking with what's good and letting the people kind of find that about you. And there's that when it comes to writing, where, it's like, am I pushing because I want to find the largest mass audience to purchase my book, or am I trying to put my voice out there and not just try to sound like everybody else? So that to me is a really important aspect of perfecting things, but not trying to become something that you're not.
Well, I mean, we almost should never use the word perfect, right? Because no one can strive. You can't even strive for perfection because it's completely unattainable. What you should strive to do is making work that is your best. Yeah. And that's the real struggle. And there's so many different approaches, and there's no one right or wrong answer, because you can find great success becoming the most commercially viable person, but that's probably not the best version of your voice.
Right.
That's the best version of you being commercially viable. But I'm not going to say, you made $50 million. I'm not going to say you were wrong for doing that.
Sure.
Good job. Your family is set for generations. Congratulations. Either way is fine. And that's why a community I love here on YouTube, but I have a small problem with, is AuthorTube, for how often they put out videos where this is the way you do it. There is no other way to do it. Do it this way. And I'm sitting here like, no, because, right. Just talk to different authors. Every single one will give you different answer of how they were able to do what they did, whether it's world building or developing a magic system or writing a character.
Yep.
And the whole answer of like, how do I improve is so different for everybody. The only thing I can say is look back at what you did. What do you hate? Fix it.
Yep. Speaking about this whole commercialization side of our conversation, I mean, I'll take 50 million, of course, any day. But by the way, people that are watching, subscribe, like the video, and go share it, and tell people that Daniel and I are talking live right now, and come watch it. This is only going to get better as we dig in a little bit deeper, because I want to talk about the commercialization of the Wheel of Time itself. We know, and obviously we're talking about Amazon on Prime. We're talking about new content creators out there, and I don't mean necessarily new YouTube channels and such. I mean, they took the rights away for those that we kind of knew were doing Wheel of Time, products, if you will. And we're about to kind of enter an era of this commercialization aspect of the Wheel of Time with Amazon. How are you how are you approaching this? Does it bother you at all, or kind of where are you at with what's about to happen in the Wheel of Time fandom?
So this is a difficult question for me to answer, because I don't want to sound like I'm some biased hack who's just hoping Wheel of Time's going to pay me money or something one day, or Amazon is. But I'm very happy with what I've seen so far. Yeah. Extremely so. I know for a fact that many of the people very close to the show are mega fans and are doing their absolute best to make it great. And I think, that's the most we can ask for as fans reasonably. We also have a studio that has more money than they know what to do with, just unloading wheelbarrows of cash on projects. And I'm sure they're giving plenty of those wheelbarrows to Wheel of Time. So yes, I'm happy. I've gone back and watched videos and movies from people who are now involved in cast, and they're stellar. They're so good. I'm so happy with the performances I'm seeing. And so I'm happy in that sense. Okay. What I'm dreading is the complete other side of things, where suddenly IGN starts making Wheel of Time content from some intern who they told to do it. So he Googles Wheel of Time, reads a Wikipedia page, and puts out an article. And then it's my job to go and say, this is terrible. You said all of this, which is wrong. Don't do it again. And that's the side of it I don't want, where we get the people who aren't fans, but are just trying to cash in, creating Wheel of Time content. Yeah. And it's going to happen. Yep. It's going to give me some content, which is nice, I guess. Those videos do well for me. That's fine. But at the same time, I just don't want a BuzzFeed, which of the Two Rivers people are you a best fit for? And someone is like, oh, they filled out perfectly lined up for Matt. And it's like, you're pot on Fane. What? Like, that's the where I'm like, this is going to just annoy me. This is going to annoy the crap out of me.
By the way, Shansane in YouTube comments, I don't know if you're watching this, she said this right before you said BuzzFeed. She said, "BuzzFeed, which Forsaken are you?"
Oh, great minds. There you go.
Yeah. She's definitely a great mind for sure.
And we're also, we've seen, there have been people who've come out and said, I don't like the casting for XYZ reason. And their criticisms are totally valid. It's fine. Like, they don't like it for those reasons. But I also had to add racial slurs filter to my channel after those castings were announced. I had, for the first time ever, to say, if someone uses this word, block it automatically, this word automatically, block it. By the way, YouTube, how was that not already just a thing? But okay.
Right.
So yes, I don't think everyone who hates the casting is racist. Of course not. You're allowed to just not like the casting. That's fine. But there's also been a side of it that's really disappointed me, to see the amount of people who have just seen the color of someone's skin and gone off.
Sure.
And that's really disappointing. So there's been really great sides of it where I think this show has a whole lot of potential. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to be good, but I'm definitely excited.
Yeah.
And but then there's the other side of it where I know one day I'm going to fill out a BuzzFeed quiz because I won't be able to help myself. And that BuzzFeed quiz is going to piss me off.
You're going to be like, this sucks. Yes.
Exactly.
20-minute
rant coming now.
You're like, that's going to be one of your videos. It's like, I just filled out this quiz and I want to talk about it. It's like, but first, I'm Pat and Fane, Yeah.
Right.
That's definitely coming. I think that's a reasonable kind of, trepidation about what's coming. But I guess all of that, right, what you just said, both of those together, at least for me, is like, oh man, I'm so happy overall because it's back. At least that was how it always was, between books, when books were being released. It was, as many people came on the forums and were talking about how much they hate everything that Jordan's ever done. They were sitting on a Wheel of Time forum telling me how much they, this is how much I hate this stuff, know, and like, I was like, great, awesome, keep coming back because we want to talk about these things. But I think you're right. We are kind of like, we're entering a different level of the BuzzFeed articles, if you will. But digging into those, we're getting a lot more of that, if you will, kind of need to make news, right? All about the Wheel of Time, and whether or not it's BuzzFeed or it's Variety or whatever, it's somebody wants to get the next scoop on what's about to happen. What's been your kind of favorite rumor, or that hasn't been confirmed yet, or least favorite? You can cover them both so far.
There is this incessant rumor that they are getting rid of Tom, and there's no evidence for that. They just haven't announced the casting. They are just going off saying like Tom's been cut and we should all boycott it. They haven't announced the casting for Min. They haven't announced the casting for Elida. They haven't announced the casting for 99.999% of the characters. Just because Tom isn't announced doesn't mean he is cut. And I have no idea where this is coming from. So a ton of other people involved with the Emmons Field haven't been cast either. So there's no justification for this. There's no legs for it to stand on. I don't know where this rumor came from. And it's my favorite because it pisses me off.
Yes, that one's an interesting one because he's such an iconic character. And I wonder if it's just, I don't know, for me, when you brought that up, and I was asking myself, like, yeah, that's true. We've talked about it on the show. I've talked to fans about this. And I think it's anytime you touch an iconic character, maybe in any medium, especially when it comes to adaptations, like I don't know if you've seen some of the live adaptations we've done here on the show, but we got to talking about Loyal, and, Fandom lost its mind in comments and, afterwards, because we had the audacity to, some of the panelists had the audacity, not me, to suggest that, yeah, he could be cut from this moment, as in if we needed to streamline the books and we're trying to pace it. Okay, I could see if they cut that, if they cut him, it wouldn't be the worst. You could change it this way, and people lost their mind, which was part I loved, not because they lost their minds, but because of how much they loved those characters, right? They're like, no, this is so key to me. So I wonder if part of that rumor, right, is just this aspect of, not paranoia isn't the right word, but deep concern for something that has meant a lot to you in your life when it comes to the potential of the loss of that, on screen, if you will.
Everyone's worry is justified to me. And I'm not trying to tell anyone to stop being upset or worried. You're absolutely fine, because this is obviously important to millions of people. Millions, literally. They're sold 80 million copies plus. So yes, that many people. And to me, I understand people who are passionate. I get freaking out every time you see something. I really do. But as someone who has had to train themselves as their job to look objectively at stuff, it's actually pretty great, everything we've gotten so far. It could be a lot closer to a lot of the other adaptations we're seeing coming down the road, where we are getting bad news after bad news after bad news. Carnival Row just had the guy who was involved with it, who conceptualized everything, get fired or leave. We were told to leave, but like, would the guy who conceptualized something for this many years just leave? So there's awful stuff happening, and we're not getting that, really. By the way, I know Nablus' team cut Loyal. Here's what I'll say on that. Loyal is very lift-outable. You could lift him almost no problem, and the story wouldn't be that affected. But you'd be missing one of the biggest parts of Wheel of Time's soul out there. Sure. He is so integral to the soul of the series that I would hate it if he was cut. I'd understand it, but I would hate it.
So I think everyone watching, if you just heard, Daniel Greene just said they can cut him.
No.
Sorry. I just wanted to throw out some fantasy news for anyone that's doing YouTube channels all about fantasy news. You can take that and just run with it.
If I was in charge of the show and someone said we're going to cut Loyal, I would have a tremendous issue with that person.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I don't know if you heard that. Daniel Greene just said no cutting. No. Anyways, yeah, that's how this goes, right? You have a conversation for like an hour, and someone takes like one moment, and they run with it, right? That's right. And I'm sure that's probably how Watt on Prime. This isn't new to the medium of adaptations and television from books and such. It's not like this is a new thing in fandom, but I'm certain we're kind of unique a little bit, and we run with stuff as soon as we have as soon as Narg posts an image on Instagram from some that might be on the set or whatever it is. I think it's just a general excitement, but you can tell that Wheel of Time on Prime, the whole group related to it, I'm sure there's just this anxiousness of like, they'd like to tell us in some way what's going on and why they're coming to certain decisions they are, but we don't have that information right now, right? And so all we have is like, oh no, they might be cutting him, and then we have that discussion afterwards. So it's like we get a 2-second clip and then we run with it for days, if you will.
Yeah, that's I'm sure frustrating on their end, but I do want to say we've been negative on the Wheel of Time fandom. I love this fandom, and I also want to say I'm very proud the number of people I already see are saying, like, we need to make sure we're not those people who, once someone says, oh, I love the Wheel of Time, I love the show, and they've not read the books, that we like say you're not a real fan. So many people are like, no, they're absolutely fans. They're allowed to be fans, and I appreciate that mentality, because I hate it whenever I'm like talking with someone and they're like afraid to say they're a Game of Thrones fan because they haven't read A Song of Ice and Fire, and they're afraid I'm like be snobby towards them. No, you're absolutely a fan, and that's wonderful. And the more people watching Wheel of Time, the better. If you've read the books, great. But I want people to enjoy the show as well. So they're basically two different animals to me, and I love them both. I want to bring them both up. I want to promote them both.
Okay, so you're think you're calling me to the carpet a little bit here. I want this note to go out to my family.
Okay.
If I've ever referred to you as not Wheel of Time fans because you've never read the books, I want you to know that Daniel Greene, you've suffered through my fandom for many years, and you guys are Wheel of Time fans.
At this point, if you haven't read the book, you're not a fan because there's no other medium to enjoy it. But once the show is out, if they watch the show, they're absolutely a fan.
I know that's so exciting, right? Like, I can't wait. That's honestly, for me, that is probably my greatest excitement, is that something that has meant so much to me for almost three decades is now something that they can enjoy in the way that they would consume it, right? Just because I'm a fan of the books, I'm so excited about that. I cannot wait to watch it and then to experience the books. However it's adapted, I don't really care, just because they're going to know and hopefully feel the same. Again, maybe that's what it is. I'm probably setting myself up for potential failure here, because it's possible that they kind of watch an episode and they're like, yeah, I'm not really that interested. And then I'm going to be like, you're not fans.
Well, then they're not fans.
Yeah, then they're not fans.
But there's also the side of that where it's like, I think Wheel of Time fans are super understanding for that because of how long the series we're trying to get people to read is. So once there's another medium, we're just excited to give them that option. Like, we know asking someone to read 14 or 15 books is a tall order. So
Right,
once
right.
we're like, or you can do this, a lot of people are going to be really happy that they can go, actually, just do this. If it's good, we can just go, yeah, actually, just go that route. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because I can't go up to someone who works a 9 to 5 and say, hey, read this stack of books that's as tall as your child. Like, that's not something I want to do to someone.
Yeah, and hopefully no one out there thinks that, no Wheel of Time fan thinks that I would dismiss their fandom, other than if we talk about Asmodee and such, and I disagree with you, then I will completely disassociate your fandom.
Yeah.
No, I've been arguing about this stuff online for so long, I've probably offended I don't know how many people. I go back and read things I wrote many years ago, and I'm like, that guy is such a jerk. Like,
I go back to a video I produced a week ago and I hate it, so I understand.
So, what do you think that Wheel of Time on Prime has done right, and what do you think they've done maybe not so right? If you could critique that.
I think so. This is going to be a weird criticism.
Okay.
I love how open they have been to the fan base. They've been remarkably open. We're kind of spoiled. Most adaptations don't give us any peeks at all behind the curtain until a trailer is dropped. Like, that is rare. Or they'll do some promo footage. It's rare to see people putting up, like, here's a set photo and we're still filming. Like, that's huge. Like, Rafe gave us a sheep or a goat or something. Apparently I got yelled at for calling it the wrong thing. Whatever. It's an animal. I don't care. But that's an amazing amount. But I also feel like it's a dangerous, slippery slope. And let's say, like, they all of a sudden need to get really, like, down and dirty, they might have to pull back on that stuff. And then suddenly the fans aren't getting as much. I think there's going to be I think there might be a significant amount of people are going, I deserve this. Where's my more information? It's what Wednesday. Tell me something. Like, and I feel like that's going to be annoying. So while I love that they're doing it, I think they might have to deal with some backlash if they ever have to pull back at all, because fans set a high expectation, or they feel like they just deserve more, which I'm going to take advantage of as long as they're willing to open that door. But it's a slippery slope, as I said. In terms of what I've enjoyed what they've done, same thing. It's kind of I like it, and I think it's a mistake in some ways at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that, especially maybe our reactions to it. I think they did pull back a little bit there, right? They were trying to deliver weekly some things, and that was going to be really hard to maintain. And you're right, maybe it turns into every 3 months we're going to get some big piece of news. Although you can kind of see it also building, which is they have a lot of news to pick from now, right? From a production standpoint and from a casting standpoint. And maybe there were some things that we all, figured out because they left some, maybe those breadcrumb trails were there on purpose. Maybe they weren't, and we just saw some things that they planned on announcing, and we've kind of pushed some timelines for them as far as what they plan to do. But I think they've been great so far on that aspect. And I think I struggle in that same way, which is, maybe that I'm trying to see it come back and hit them. I can't see it coming around and in the end being bad for them. But you're right. In the end, maybe they will have wished that they had kind of started the build up a little bit later, right? Can they maintain this for the next year and a half? And we'll be.
It's going to be
engaged.
A long time. Yeah, and that's why I think we already saw weekly to monthly, and there were people who were mad they went weekly to monthly.
Yeah,
there were people who were like, "Excuse," and that's because there's a large feeling of ownership within the Wheel of Time community, where people. This has been such a tight-knit group in terms of Jordan Con and everything for so long.
Yeah.
A lot of people are so emotionally connected, and I get it. I love people for being that emotionally connected, and it's really scary to see it now in this other bubble. But I also think people just need to deep breath. Deep breath. It's all going to be okay. And I 100% believe that, we're all on the same team and that everyone is working for what they believe to be the best possible Wheel of Time adaptation. And we're all rooting for that.
Yep. I feel that. Again, you can't, who knows what commercially based decisions are made. Who cares in the end? Like what I've seen so far from Rafe's team is what I'm liking what I'm seeing coming out. So whether or not the final product will be something that I love, I guess that part doesn't really matter to me so much as, Wheel of Time is back, and someone is putting their heart and soul. Lots of someone's are putting their heart and soul into making it a success, and I think that's, to me, there can't be anything wrong with that. I don't care if they make an adaptation choice that I don't like. Okay, that's not true. I do care. 13 Forsaken, but there's like other things about the books that they, part of me is like, well, I'll let that go. Like in the end, I just want to see this brought to us in a different medium. and have the story told again and enjoy it again. It's like just another reread, but in a really in a different way that I'm excited for. So
here's probably a controversial take.
Okay.
So there's a large portion of the fan base who says, like, we want the most true to the books Wheel of Time adaptation possible. And I agree with that. Don't change things unnecessarily.
Yep.
But what I don't want to see is the people who are creatively in control try to just become fan pleasers. Just do everything they can to please fans. Because that's what we're seeing Disney do with Star Wars. And look at the result. You may still love those movies, but it's not turning out as universally loved as, let's say, the originals.
Sure.
What I would much prefer them to say is we as artists are doing our best to realize the Wheel of Time as we think it is. That's the better approach to me. Yeah. Not, oh, this is going to appease the fans. This is going to appease the fans. Let's check these boxes. I want, we care about what this is, and here is our interpretation of it as best realized as possible. Because that brings about the best translation you can. I mean, that I am so turned off by people who are adaptations or movies or books that feel like they're just trying to be, oh, look, we put this thing in there. Doesn't that make you happy?
Yeah.
Like the prime example is, the end of Rogue One. You have this Darth Vader lightsaber scene. It's badass objectively. It is a cool scene. But the entire time I'm watching it, I'm going, this is fan service. It adds nothing to the story I was told, and it doesn't need to be here whatsoever. They could have just taken that clip and put it on YouTube as an advertisement thing, and I would have gotten exactly the same amount out of it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want that in my Wheel of Time. I want them to do what matters, and I want them to put their time and energy into what matters.
And by the way, and that's the funny thing about it is, I think that there's going to be a little bit of that, right? I'll be really surprised if they can get away from not throwing some fan-pleasing stuff in. But hopefully, like you're saying, it's because it serves still a purpose, and it just happens to, please the fans. But we're going to be, I just know this, in a year and a half, there's going to be like YouTube videos like the top 5 things they did just to please plans. Please fans. And I feel like some of that's going to come up because we're going to see things, and for us that are maybe have read the books a lot, we're in the Wheel of Time community, we're going to be like, I think they just did that to appease me. But people are going to be watching this, have never read the books before, and they won't even notice it. So I think some of those things will kind of just, maybe there will be some elements like that. But I agree. I'm hoping they don't spend a lot of time there, right? This stuff's going to show up, but I hope it's really, really small.
The fan service needs to be important things. Like channeling, make that as fan servicey as possible because it has to be there. Right. And I want it to be the first time we see someone throw a fireball, I want someone to have spent a month on that sound design. I want it to be this, like, I want to be able to put on high quality headphones and just hear this, like, buildup of just so much time and care put into something that's going to take 2 seconds. Yeah. I think visually it should be stunning. That's a fan service moment, but it's something that has to be there. Yeah. What I don't want fan service wise is, oh, you guys really, okay, this is going to make you happy if we see Perrin rip a guy's head off or something at some point. So, because he's like so wolfy. So we're just going to put this in there, even though it's not really cool, but we think it'll make people happy because Perrin, right? Perrin's strong, people happy. That would drive me up the wall.
Yep. No, yeah, I agree. And I do, like, I love that idea. Like, I want him to spend a month on the sound design. Yeah, absolutely. Stuff where we know that will appreciate the detail aspect of it, but it wasn't just there to kind of to sell us on the fact that they know the Wheel of Time. Like, I don't need that kind of stuff. Like, I read the Wikipedia and I'm going to prove it to you. Which,
by the way, the Wikipedia is not perfect. There are wrong things in the Wheel of Time Wikipedia, and I took it. I was like, oh, that's true. Well, it's the Wikipedia. I should believe it. And I put it in my video, and I get yelled at, and I'm like, damn it.
You're like, see in the comments down here, I said via the Wikipedia. That's not my fault. Okay, so. We've almost gone through an hour so far. This is awesome. So those of you that are here, this is a live call-in talk show. Daniel and I just got kind of so into what we're discussing here that I forgot to tell you can call.
We can absolutely squeeze a couple in.
Yeah, let's squeeze a couple. Just a couple. We'll only be able to probably take maybe two or three calls here. But if you want to give us a call, it's 1-313-TALK-WATT or 1-313-825-5968. Feel free to give us a call and comment on something that we've discussed so far, or just tell Daniel how awesome you think he is. But don't call if you're calling to tell us how much we suck.
Hey, if you want to tell me how much we suck, I will take it.
Right. So I wanted to jump into this new video that you put in while we wait for some callers. This idea of what the future portends for the Fourth Age. I watched kind of what you had done, and the thing I like about the Avienda sequence is that it was, when you go back and read it, Brandon wrote this sequence and kind of sold Team Jordan on it. This was something that he thought was necessary to put into the books, this kind of forward thinking notion versus kind of all of us, and I guess we saw a little bit of that with like Rand and the Dark One, and you think of the portal stones. But I want to throw a theory out to you. As far as her visions are concerned, Matt comes out of the portal stone early on in the Great Hunt, and he always talks, I thought it was Matt, talks about betraying Rand. And I love the idea that part of why we don't see or hear of Rand, now I know these are very narrow stories that Avienda is seeing from a vision standpoint, but I love the idea, I don't know, part of me just likes this, that Matt ends up actually betraying Rand at some point in the future. By the way, hopefully no one here actually thought we weren't going to cover spoilers.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, spoiler warning. Sorry. That was sort of shown up before. So is your take, I remember I'm watching the video, but is your take that this future won't happen simply because Avienda in the end, tried to change it? Or do you think that it took into account things that are happening, actually take into account, whatever changes to the Dragon's Peace or these other things, and this is kind of a real, mostly real take on what's going to happen?
So my takeaway from the future and the Wheel of Time, from the visions we see and some of the answers we get, and the fact that some people can see this will happen in the future period, is that time in the Wheel of Time, I hate saying that word that much, is like a river going downhill. I think we're kind of get a metaphor that's similar to this, and certain things become inevitable. It will hit that rock. That's the event that will happen. And in that case, we get a vision of the future. It's going to hit there. But you can do things that redirect a river. So something's far enough down the road, it is preventable enough, you can eventually sway it away from a certain event. That's why we don't get Min getting a vision where she's like 400 years in the future, this person's going to do that, because it's not set yet. That's my take.
Yeah.
People are going to have different takes. That's mine. We get some things that are similar to that I think are told to us. So I'm not wholly original there, but that's my best boiled down. That's how things happen.
Yeah.
So Avienda's future, I think, was a very likely future. What she added to the Dragon's Peace is a huge boulder in the stream redirection of trying to pull away from it. Is it enough? I think no, but yes, I think it's enough to once the Seanchan and the war in the Dragon's Peace is broken, which in my opinion it 100% will be. Once it is broken, there will be a united front immediately against the Seanchan. That's the change she was able to effect. Unlike in her visions, where it was more scattered and not everyone immediately went at the Seanchan.
Yep.
I think with her change, the Seanchan, which are remarkably strong, will suddenly be dealing with a united Westlands.
Yep. Yeah, I would say that. I think that's right. I think that a lot of those things will, maybe variations of them will actually happen, and maybe this change that she kind of in essence pushed in, it won't be enough. But I do like the variability, the potential there, because we get a very narrow idea of what this future looks like. We're getting a very singular viewpoints, and so I love what all the other things, just the idea that we have kind of this idea of speculating into what that means, and I love that the Dark One at the time is still touching the pattern. So you can kind of ask yourself, is there any effect here from a Tarangarel perspective or from a pattern perspective of what's, however these two things are, uniting to present this information, is this because the Dark One's touch is still there, and has Rand changed those things, or is this simply grabbing past futures of the wheel and iterating over, what that might mean as far as the future is concerned, regardless, knowing that the Dark One's going to be, defeated. So
yeah, and it's that's the problem with the Wheel of Time, is there's so much you can pull from for evidence pointing in different directions. Like there's some people who still don't, they're big fans, but they don't comprehend that this is a wheel. This will happen. Like this is we're going around. Like we went past the point and we're coming around. Like, and so I think I think what we can speculate as fans about uncertainly is the immediate future of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go through this whole cycle again. The Dark One will return.
Yes. Right.
And so Rand decided to not get rid of free will. End of story.
Right.
Free will is going to continue.
Well, let's. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was gonna say we have a caller, and I think you'll know him. Let me bring in Nablus into the call. Hey, Nablus, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Doing wonderful.
How's your Sunday afternoon?
Yeah. Oh, it's spectacular listening to you two. First of all, I wanted to say two things real quick. First of all, Daniel, tobacco and tobacco are two very different things. That was an incorrect answer. I stand by the incorrect answer.
No hard feelings. I get it.
I'd also like to volunteer to run your Twitter handle, since I know you're a big time now, and I know you were talking about that earlier. So I'm going to throw my name out there in the ring. If you need somebody to handle your Twitter, I promise to only be a little bit snarky.
Perfect. So. If I start tweeting like Kanye, then I will give you my Twitter.
Please don't start tweeting like Kanye.
Start tweeting at Mark Zuckerberg asking him for millions of dollars. That was a thing.
Well, if it works, it works. But hey, no, I was just going to say this. Since Daniel's on here, I'm going to publicly gush over him for a minute. I wanted to praise Daniel a little bit. First of all, for inspiring. I mean, in all seriousness, Daniel, whether you intended to do this or not, you've really sparked kind of a renaissance, I think, in the Wheel of Time YouTube community. It really started it, I should say. You inspired me to make my channel, and so obviously I love what you do, and I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the help you gave me, and you're all the success you're having, it's deserved. So I'm pumped for you, and I just wanted to say that. So
well, I can't let you get away with that. I can't let you get away without gushing back, because 100% you are a more knowledgeable Wheel of Time fan than me. And if people are looking for what I think is the most knowledgeable brain on YouTube making Wheel of Time content, Nablus is the man to go to.
He's got it.
Well, I would say the Dusty Wheel is a pretty fun place to go to. So
that's why we're both here.
Right. I love the way the community's heading here, and it's exciting that we're all big super fans, and we've got this show now and coming up, and I'm just excited for it. So
yeah. I
just wanted to call in.
Let me add in there, definitely, and I told the ladies from White Tower Podcast, it was that Jordan Con seeing, and Daniel was there also, and walking away, that there were a few content creators there. And when it comes to YouTube, it was definitely Daniel, where I walked away and I was like, man, I think this would be a lot of fun for what he's doing. So I want to double down on that the Dusty Wheel is here, definitely in part because of Daniel and Nablus, what you guys were doing. So yeah, I love that we're here chatting about this. It's been a lot of fun to be part of the community, and I appreciate, Nablus, that you jumped in right now and that you've jumped on the show with us before and did that live adaptation. That was a lot of fun. And like I said, hopefully we'll get back in and break down a topic together. I hope we'll continue doing this.
I'm always down, and I don't want to monopolize the time here. I know there's plenty of callers that want to get on with you guys, but I'll say this: I will throw one pitch out there, guys. Like, I think all three of us are planning on being at JordanCon. All of you should get registered and go.
Yes.
So everybody should be there.
Everyone should be there, yeah, and we'll definitely be there. Yeah, we should. I like that idea. Let's talk offline about how we might be able to do something at JordanCon. That'd be sweet.
Did you hear that, everybody? We talk with, and you guys are not here.
Hey, well, thank you, Nablus. Really appreciate it, man.
Yep.
Hey, have a good
man.
one.
Great show.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. Bye-bye.
You too.
So, Nablus is awesome. You both put out fantastic content, and again, that's part of. I kind of go and like, oh, what are they guys talking about, and what's interesting? What have fans enjoyed so far, and in essence, what can the Dusty Wheel bring to it that's that'll be interesting. So no, I appreciate everything you both have done. So
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Lancer. He's been waiting here. Lancer, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Hey, you guys. Thank you, Innkeeper, for having me. Daniel Greene, it is a privilege and an honor to see and talk to you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So, but I will have to tell you, Daniel, I won't stroke your ego too much. You guys suck. No, I'm kidding.
Lancer, I always appreciate you calling in.
You guys out in case you guys don't know, I'm Porthos on the chat, so that is me.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to ask you, Daniel, what is the one fear that you have for the live action adaptation? Is it the how they're going to depict channeling with the CG? Is it the casting of Tom, perhaps, or maybe is it a scene that's not going to be in the live adaptation? What is your one big fear in the live adaptation?
Okay, so that's a really, really good question. And so my fear is actually something I'm certain will be the case. And that is, this is 14 books that I am deeply passionate about. They will do something I don't like. And my fear is how I'll be able to take it. They will do something we all don't like. We all have such strong opinions in all 14 books. My fear is when I come across the first one, am I going to, as a reviewer, objectively be able to go, it's okay, they made a choice, and I'm going to be fine with that? Or am I going to be deeply hurt, and am I going to be really upset, and am I going to start tweeting at Rafe, how could you? Because they're going to make choices that I disagree with. They're gonna do things, and that's fine. We need to understand as fans that we're not going to get the adaptations we perfectly want. If I had to pinpoint one exact thing, my real fear is how, it's there's room. We've been told with rumors it's got a good budget. There's people online speculating about that all over the case. Lord of the Rings got given such a huge budget, but there's a huge budget, and then there's a budget big enough to do the Wheel of Time. And so a lot of my concerns will be eased when they finally let us know how much season one is allowed to spend. Because up to this point we don't know. And, if all of a sudden we're told it has a smaller budget in the first season of Game of Thrones and they need to do all these channeling scenes, I'm really worried about bad CGI. So if down the road we're told, hey, it was given X amount of dollars for season one and it's a jaw-dropping amount of money, I'm going to be so happy. But we don't know for sure. And that's probably my biggest fear right now is money, which sounds really horrible to be like, I'm afraid about money, but I am. I really am.
No, I think that's a reasonable fear, I think, for sure. Hey, Lancer, thank you very much for calling in. As always, we appreciate you being a fan of the show and for when you come in and ask great questions like that. Hopefully you'll have a great evening. Keep on watching, and we'll see you hopefully this Wednesday. You'll come back and join us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. You both rock.
Hey, thank you.
So do you.
And we have one more caller on. Let's bring him in. He's been patiently waiting for us.
Thank you for waiting patiently.
Hey, Nick. Welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hi, Daniel. I love your channel. I know everyone's going to tell you that, but I wanted to make a comment on something that you had said earlier and something Matt had said before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to ask you a question, Daniel.
Sure.
My question is, how do you think they're going to do the first season? Do you think it's going to be just the Eye of the World, or do you think it's going to be the Eye of the World and the Great Hunt Behind? And how many episodes do you think we're going to get?
That's a really good question. Amazon, I believe, is typically doing 8 or 10. It's in that realm, and I think we'll probably see it stick to that because that's a studio level. This is what we do, and we'll probably stay with that. I was originally very convinced we're going to do first 2 books. I'm still not 100% dissuaded from that, but we've seen things that now I'm more not sure, but I'm still thinking the first 2 books are possible. And I wish I could tell you, like, I've put together A, B, Z, D, and here's my conclusion. But I'm in the dark as most people here, and I would say it's about a 60-40 shot. 60% they just do the first book because they're adapting the first book for season 1. 40% they go, there's not enough quite content there for 10 episodes. Let's go ahead and make it the first 2. Or they could go full on Master and Commander, which is a wonderful movie. But what they did there was they just pulled from book 3, book 4, book 2, and they just crafted a narrative that made sense for a movie. And we could see them do the same thing for season 1.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same realm. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm hopeful they don't go the Master and Commander route. The reason I think there's going to be 2 seasons, my only real reason for that is because I see the series getting, if we're lucky, 8 seasons. And there's so many books. And yeah, you can combine the middle books into one season, but I think you still have to move at a reasonable pace. because if we get 8 seasons, they may try to do the last battle as one season, as the final season, which I would love because it's so involved and complex, and particularly the one chapter.
Yeah, I fully believe that adapting the last battle will be the most difficult undertaking any TV show has had to do, flat out. I'm not even joking. I think that is one of the most difficult things to adapt ever, because in terms of scope, consistent, just hugely expensive sets you're going to have to build, it will be ridiculous to do. I mean, and I think they could do it. It's Amazon. They could throw a country's net worth at it and do it. It's just, will they?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Nick, you had a question for me?
I hope.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You had said before that you were going to do, you'd plan to do an episode on the descriptions of the characters in the books.
Yep.
And like the specific ways they're described.
Yep.
And the cultures and the stuff like that. Are you still planning? I'm hoping that you're still planning on doing that, and that Daniel, you'll cover that as well, because I think a lot of the stuff we see online, especially if they can't cast, that the Two Rivers is full of white people, or I've seen stuff like that online, and I think a lot of it doesn't come from racism. I think it comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
Because the comic adaptation, like almost all the characters are white. There's been a couple interviews where Robert Jordan mentioned people he would have liked to see play, and they were white characters, but the books paint a very different tale. When they're in Camelot, Elida mentions them as some of the characters as dark skinned or darker skinned.
Yeah, and Daniel, to give you some context. Oh, sorry, Nick.
Yeah, so I would love to see videos from you guys and from the other YouTubers where there's context on that.
Yeah, so to give Daniel some context on this, so I started a study after this kind of fandom kind of reacted to the casting choices, which was I just wanted a better concept of what I might have whatever missed or not seen in the books. So I started doing a study. It's extremely what I came to realize, Nick, was I want to feel more competent about it before I do that. In other words, just for how I look at research and such. So as I realized it was a lot bigger of a lift for me of getting there to do the episode, but absolutely it's absolutely planned probably early this next year when I have time to do the study, and I'll end up announcing it when it's coming, and we'll do a deep dive on that. So no, I appreciate you asking though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just love to see videos information that could put this to, to bed once and for all. Well, sure. People could be like, no, here's a video, or here's some videos that explain what do they actually say about the characters. Because I feel like they go much more into the clothes and the culture and the cities than they do about the individual descriptions of the characters.
See, I've
read the books there several times.
Yeah, there's also a side of it where this might be controversial to say, I don't think Robert Jordan pushed much weight on race within his series. I mean, Brandon, in the interview I had with him verbatim, said that. He said it wasn't about race. It's a discrimination based on nationality and culture. Yep. And so that's where I think the show needs to put its time and care, is developing these cultures and nationality. So I find the whole conversation to be a bit odd when in the text itself, race doesn't matter that much. Yep. Because that's why it's so controversial, because it's not brought up or mentioned much at all. And what is brought up and mentioned is develop these nationalities and cultures. So I do plan on doing a video similar to that. Dusty Wheel, maybe we could collab on that. That'd be great.
I'd love that.
But it's also just the answer is not necessarily as black and white as people say, because there's this other aspect where the priority was different from the author in the first place.
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, I would love to. Maybe we should talk about that afterwards. Hey, Nick, thank you very much for calling in. As always, really appreciate you you jumping on and giving your opinion, and hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yep. Talk to you Wednesday.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
So we have one more caller. This is the last call for our event here, and then I have what I want to call the Portal Stone round of kind of quick, I guess lightning round to be, but I'm calling it the Portal Stone round here of fun little things where I get to give you really 3 seconds to answer, and you give me your kind of favorites and stuff. So we'll jump into that. But let's bring our last. It's first time caller from Syracuse, New York. Let's bring Brian onto the show. Hey Brian, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing this afternoon?
Good. How are you all doing?
Good. So what's going on?
So first I'd like to say thank you both. I'm calling because this adaptation is to a degree a response to the huge popularity of Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
What sort of moments do you think are going to be considered the Wheel of Time shows Ned Stark dies, Red Wedding, that sort of, the people who have never read the books are going to be completely just talking about it forever, and everyone who's read the books is going to ask what just happened and keep talking about it.
So here, I love this question. I love this question. And here is my thing. Episode 1, my man. Episode 1. Because we're going to get Winter's Night episode 1, in my opinion. I think that's where that's it. And so basically what we're going to have is people expecting a Lord of the Rings, because that's the reputation of Wheel of Time. And so I can't wait for people to be like, oh, it's nice, it's like the Shire, and then the Shire burns. Like, that's essentially what's going to happen, and I think that's great. I think it'll make a lot of people talk. I think so many people are going to be like, this was such a nice, wholesome thing, and then a half-human, half-wolf showed up and attacked a town, and it was this bloodbath, and then on top of that, this woman starts throwing fireballs. It's beautiful. That I think episode 1, Wheel of Time, is going to make a splash in that sense.
The Shire burns. I love that.
Yeah. The Shire catches fire.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess mine would be, I think if they do it right, the Dark Friend Social, as we refer to it at the beginning of The Great Hunt, where I think if they do that right, this idea, you get this idea generally there's some dark friends, blah, 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 and they're kind of chasing them. But if they do that right, you'll find out, like, oh my gosh, there's like this thing they're up against is so big, and there's so much power, working against, these kids, if you will, and this impossibility, right? Like Moraine takes them there, and they accomplish this first thing, and all of a sudden if they do it right, I think the Dark Friend Social could be a cool. It won't maybe have the same impact as the Red Wedding, but the potential to kind of twist what this story is in the minds of those that are watching, I think that's a big moment, at least for me.
And spoiler warning again for further in the series, but another big moment for me, and this isn't one I don't think is brought up enough, is when Perrin returns to the Two Rivers and finds out his family's dead. And been brutally murdered, died by, horrible circumstance. I think that as well is a moment where, people in Game of Thrones, they talk about the death of these characters and how it affects others. And I can't wait to see the actor portraying Perrin's portrayal of that moment, because he falls apart completely. And that is something that, if acted well enough, will tear your viewers apart. It'll resonate with them. It'll make them love this character, fall so much for them, empathize with them. And with the skill showed by, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right now, in a couple of movies I've watched him in since his casting was announced, I fully believe this guy has it in him. I'm just hoping that we've been built the character to this point, and he's been developed enough on the screen time that once Perrin breaks and falls apart, this guy who's been this Marcus Rutherford, thank you, this guy who's been this big macho man, we can really feel for him as viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have one that was coming to mind? Brian, is there somebody is there a moment that you kind of look at and you think it could be, echo that same way?
So my issue was I couldn't really think of a huge moment in The Eye of the World that would just completely turn everything upside down, except for maybe the prologue, which is a problem. For The Great Hunt, which may or may not be in season 1, I don't know. I was thinking I Win Again, Lose Theron, but The Eye of the World, couldn't really find this is something that you were not expecting in this kind of fantasy show.
Yeah, and I think there's the Shire burning to me is definitely would be a great way to start this off. And then Daniel just brought up kind of almost the return to the Shire burning again, right? Like both of those moments in essence. Yeah. But I think there is and maybe that's something that those who are adapting the show are asking themselves, which is, how are we going to just, are we going to add a twist? That might be something that fans hate if they throw in something, or maybe they'll grab something from book 3, and throw it into the first season in order to kind of create moments like that? I don't know. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brian, thank you very much for being a first-time caller and for jumping on, and really appreciate it, and hope you'll stick around and catch our shows coming up.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been great calling in.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye. So that is everyone kind of is looking for that moment, right? The Red Wedding moment, which is funny because, again, people that read the books were like, yeah, that was shocking, but it's known. And so I think it's hard almost from a fandom perspective for us to find those, like, what can we be shocked about? I remember Jordan is I can't remember how do you pronounce the Amayar, the in essence, all the people that, I should say spoilers at this point, when they commit suicide. And I remember fandom being like, it's whatever. There's like, and Jordan was like, you guys are heartless in essence, like, how could you not react to this? I think there is that sense of having read the material over and over again. I think it's kind of tough to kind of pick out that, I don't know, that moment that's going to be shocking to people that have never, ever read the books before. So
the chat is bringing up an amazing scene as well. And that's the Moraine and Lanfear in the doorway. And if they, I think, land that scene in a way where what's emphasized to the viewer is all of a sudden our farm boys, our farm girls don't have a guide anymore. They're alone. If that is emphasized, that will be an expletive moment. That will be a moment of they're alone now. Rand has to go fight Forsaken, and he doesn't have the one person who we knew really was on his side.
Yeah, that's. I think that'll be a huge. Oh man, I hope we get there. Like, part of me, you were talking about the last battle being adapted, and I was like, oh man, I don't care how we get there. If we can get to the last battle, then that's awesome.
We will know that I will become a devoutly religious man if we get to the point where Rand can deliver that final monologue. If that can happen, I will join a clergy.
Nice. Okay, Portal Stone round it is. Here we go. I'm gonna spit these questions off and just give me the first reaction to them. Favorite Wheel of Time book?
Memory of Light right now, but sometimes it's also the first Memory of Light. There you go. You said not. There you go.
Favorite villain in the Wheel of Time?
Favorite villain in the Wheel of Time. I will answer that it is Ashemo.
Okay. Favorite channeler in general in the Wheel of Time?
Rand.
Character you disliked the most when you first read the books, but now you like?
Nynaeve.
Critique the Wheel of Time in 15 seconds. Go.
The Wheel of Time could absolutely use some editing when it comes to, we can shrink it down a little bit here. You don't need to describe this dress for this long. That is a valid criticism people have.
Okay, yeah, we're down to eight books. You could have done it in 8.
I'll say 10.
10? Okay. Sell me the Wheel of Time in 15 seconds.
The Wheel of Time is the single greatest fantasy series to be inspired by Tolkien and bring his ideas and concepts to the next level that has ever been written.
Sold! I love it. That's great. Okay. Okay, generally, favorite fantasy author in general?
Robert Jordan.
Okay. Football, soccer, baseball, basketball, other or not a sporter?
Can I say boxing?
Oh, yeah, boxing is in. Nice. Boxing, huh?
I watch old boxing matches a lot, and for some reason, I don't know why.
Dang, now I want to dig into that. But no, we have to keep moving forward. Okay, if you had been born 200 years ago, what would you want to be doing?
200 years ago, so if I was born in the 1800s, and I don't know what I know now, I'm freshly born. This isn't a time travel situation. Yeah. I would want to be a noble who does nothing. Just some guy who's rich, born to a king, doesn't have to worry about all the problems that are in the world in the 1800s.
That's legit. Except unless they come for your head, I guess, at that point. But at that point, you've lived just a great life, right? So who cares? Okay, the opposite of that. 200 years from now, you're born. What do you hope that you're doing, or how the world's changed? What would you be doing 200 years from now?
I hope I'm put in a tank, they plug a thing in the back of my head, and I just live paradise infinitely, a million times, sped up, until I eventually just rot away.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Or the command of a Star Trek ship.
Yes! I want to be in space. I would definitely want to be on a ship somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so that was the end of Portal Store Round. Thank you very much for playing, Daniel. Appreciate it. What's the as we kind of close up here, what's the future of fantasy news for you? You know, your YouTube channel here. What do you see coming in 2020? What do you hope is the next, you know, whatever, foreseeable 5 years?
I hope that I can continue to do what I'm doing, but just continuously improve the quality and make it so that I can become a reliable touchstone within the fantasy community. That's my goal. It's a lofty one, but I'm hoping to get there. I know right now I have a reputation of accidentally letting spoilers slips. I'm immensely sorry. I know every now and then fake news gets through and I report something that's not true. I'm sorry. I'm trying to button down the hatches. I'm hoping to have a real studio, and I want to become the guy where if I reach out to an author, I'm pretty sure they're going to say yes.
Awesome. I think those are all great and lofty goals, but ones I definitely think from what I've seen so far that I will not be surprised when they happen. I can't wait till they do. So, hey, thank you so much for, you know, jumping on, spending time here. Let me dig into the life of Daniel Greene and doing this live show. It's and for all of you that have been watching in the comments, we loved watching the comments. Hopefully you felt a part of the show. I didn't get to pull in as many in as I would like to, but I hope that those of you that called in, especially our first-time caller, really appreciate it, and hope that you continue to engage this way. And make sure that you show back up. If you're a Brandon Sanderson fan, we'll do that live show down at his event on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we're going to have our first in-studio thing. And I'm sure all these things will have technical difficulties as we make our way through kind of figuring out these fun kind of new ways to do the show we do here. And one more shout out to Nablus. Thanks for being here. And the three of us, Daniel, Nablus, we need to do something here in the future. Let's figure what it is, and let's make it happen in 2020.
Sounds great. And I do want to make a point here. This is one of the best executions of a very original idea I have seen for anything involving the Wheel of Time. Well done.
I appreciate that. I think like I told you, this is probably the only thing I have to never have to go back and watch this video. I am too shy. Maybe it doesn't come across that way, but I appreciate you saying that. This has been a lot of fun for me to have just a fun way to talk to my friends and such about the Wheel of Time and fantasy in general. And so it's been awesome to make new friends like you and all of you that have been watching. So to this, I say good afternoon and good night from the Dusty Wheel. See everybody on Tuesday and Wednesday. Smash to black.